Shalom, WJC family. It's time for our weekly Torah Talk. The Parsha this week is Parshat Naso, which contains one of the most famous and most oft-repeated passages in the Torah. It is the Kohanic blessing, which is said in our daily prayer when there's a repetition of the Amidah. It's said, invoked often at our life cycle events, and is the prayer that Jewish parents traditionally give to their children on Friday nights. It goes, Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai panecha v'chunecha, Yisa Adonai panav elecha, v'yasem lecha shalom, and is usually translated as, may God bless and protect you, may God be gracious to you and treat you with kindness, and may God lift his countenance to you and grant you peace. It's so simple. It is so often said that we don't usually dig as deep into these very powerful words as maybe we should. In this Torah Talk, I want to particularly address the last line. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May God lift his countenance, his face to you, and grant you peace. You see, peace has been very much on our minds these last couple of weeks. We always pursue peace, but these last couple of weeks, as there's been war in Israel and Gaza, riots around Israel and Gaza and the West Bank, all kinds of violence, we've prayed for peace. We've prayed for peace for all of the innocent people on each side of the border involved in this conflict. And as of tonight, a few hours ago, there's a ceasefire, a fragile truce, it's being called. And it's holding. And a lot of us, even myself, I caught myself saying, oh, thank God, peace. But I'm not sure a fragile ceasefire and the continuation of the current situation is really peace. And so I want to dig into that last line, God lift God's countenance to you and grant you peace, and see if maybe we can understand a little better what true peace is, because I don't think we should be satisfied with where we're at if we really understand the meaning of this blessing. So let's look at some of the commentaries. The Chafetz Chaim, in his Musar work, Shmirat HaLashon, he has a whole treatise that he brings on peace. And in talking about it, he says, Chazal have said further in Vayikra Rabbah, great is peace for all of the goodly blessings and consolations that the Holy Blessed One convokes upon Israel, conclude with peace. The Shema, he spreads his canopy of peace. The Amidah, he makes peace. The priestly blessings, and he shall repose upon peace. He shall v'yasem lecha shalom. He shall create for you peace. So what's he talking about? How does the Shema end with peace? Well, in the evening tefillah, we read in the Hashkivenu, right, the last blessing after we say the Shema, Ufros aleinu sukkah shlomecha, that God should spread over us sukkah, a canopy of peace. And in the Amidah, the last blessing is what? Sim Shalom, or Shalom Rav, which ends with the prayer for peace, that God should make peace. Oseh Shalom. And lastly, the priestly blessing, the one that we're talking about today, Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom, that God should lift God's countenance and grant us peace, create for us peace. So all of these very important blessings, says the Chafetz Chaim, and they wrap up with a prayer for peace. Therefore, my children, says the Chafetz Chaim, be circumspect in this trait, to love peace and pursue peace, for there is no end to the reward for loving peace and pursuing peace. It's not enough to pray for peace, right? According to the Chafetz Chaim and so many of our sources, we need to be rodef shalom, pursuers of peace. So what does that mean? What is this elusive shalom that needs to be granted by God or constantly pursued by us? In commenting on our text, on the third of this trifold priestly blessing, the Kav HaYashar says, peace is a valuable commodity, that the sages comment in the Midrash that no vessel is more capable of holding blessing than peace. They note for this reason, the priestly blessing ends with the words, and he will grant you peace. Right? Because that is what it takes to hold a blessing. Without peace, in other words, the Kav HaYashar is saying, there is no blessing. We can't hold it. We can't contain it. So what is this peace? What is it exactly that is so powerful that it holds the blessing? That is so important that we close all of the major parts of our tefillah, of our prayers with it. So powerful that we should be ever pursuing it. Or HaChaim, in his comment on the Alecha Panav, Yisaronai Panav Elecha, he says, may the God lift up your countenance. This means that in the event that we have created some barrier between ourself and peace, God will lift us up over it, v'yasem lecha shalom, and grant us peace. The meaning of the word peace, says Or HaChaim, is harmony. Right? What does it mean? It is the reverse, he says, of any kind of separation or fragmentation. Anyone examining the word carefully realizes that this concept represents the foundation upon which the world is built on, because it is through peace, through this harmony, through this connection, this lack of separation, that the higher world of spirituality and God coexists with the mundane world in which we find ourselves every day. In other words, peace is the foundation of the world. It's what holds the world together. It's the gravity, the glue that allows existence to be, that allows us to feel spirituality in the material world and allows the material world to be connected to the spiritual world. Shalom is anti-fragmentation. So there may be a truce right now, there may be a ceasefire, but there is not shalom, there is not peace. The fragmentation is all around us. It's within Israeli society, not only between Israeli Jews and Israeli Arabs, but between Israeli Jews and Israeli Jews, Israeli Arabs and Israeli Arabs. The divisions in Israeli society are so intense right now, and not even adding in Palestinian society, with the Palestinian Authority and Fatah in the West Bank, and Hamas, this terrorist organization in Gaza, and caught in the middle of all this fragmentation, just plain citizens of Israel, citizens of Gaza, citizens of the West Bank, often caught up in this violence, in this fragmentation against their own will, but also apparently catching it like a disease, as Arab and Jewish rioters and mobs were going around, committing violence to each other. That fragmentation, that lack of cohesiveness, of shleimut, of integrity, of society, that's not going away. And by the way, it's also true within the greater Jewish community, within the world community. We are so quick, all of us. All you have to do is read any newspaper, open any social media outlet. So quick to accuse, so quick to draw lines, so limited in our ability to listen, to empathize, to dialogue. Without those things, in this situation, peace is not possible. If our job is to be pursuers of peace, then we need to work against that fragmentation, not to make sure everyone sees it my way. That is one way to undo fragmentation. just to be one solid, insist on one solid, unified opinion. But that is not the peace that is called for by the Or HaChaim here. That is not the unification of varying fragments. There's beauty, there's power in that unification, in that shalom. Sforno goes on to describe Vayasem Lacha Shalom, to describe peace this way. And really listen to this definition. It's so beautiful. The serenity of peace, which is equivalent to an infinite, unbroken, and undisturbed existence, not tainted by punishment, something which is a feature of life in the world to come. How will we know we have achieved peace? When this life feels like paradise for us, for all the people in the world, the poor, the downtrodden, the abused, those ruled by dictators and those ruled in democracies. Everyone feels that taste of the world to come. That's what we should be pursuing when we're pursuing peace. I am so glad that rockets have stopped falling on my Israeli brothers and sisters, on all the citizens of Israel, Jew and Arab, Muslim and Christian, and every other kind in between, every type of person. And I'm also glad that air raids have stopped in Gaza. I'm glad that the violence in the streets has calmed down. I'm more than glad. But that's not peace. We can be glad about that, but realize how much work there is ahead of us in order to achieve Vayasem Lacha Shalom. Maybe the most important piece of that blessing, the most important part of that blessing, isn't the Shalom, but the Vayasem Lacha. That peace is a process. It's something that needs to be granted. It's something that needs to be pursued by us. And this moment, when the rockets and the bombs have stopped, we can take a breath, we can assess, we can mourn those who've been lost and hurt, and we should do that. We should reflect on what violence, if any, was done in our names that was not appropriate. And those audits will happen, those investigations will happen, at least on the Israeli side. I believe that. It's important. It's important to recognize that. Mistakes could have been made, and if they were, they'll be assessed, because that's what democracies do. I'm not as confident of that on the other side of the border. Maybe even doubtful. But after we take our breath, even as we do it, even after we make our assessments and mourn and cry and laugh with our family who's safe and move forward, the work of peace never stops. The work of peace is what's needed. It's not only peace for our people, it's peace for all people. It's not only the sense of security and safety for Jews, although I am committed to that in Israel, and as acts of anti-Semitism are on the rise in this country and other parts of the world in reaction to this conflict. But it's safety and security for all people. That is when true peace will reign. May it come speedily in our days, and may we do our parts to be pursuers of peace and to make it so. Amen.